Hey everyone, I'm Chelsea Conrad, career coach at Proactive Happiness. So I know there are a lot of folks out there who have recently made the transition to working from home. I myself made that transition a while back, and I wanted to take this opportunity to give everybody some tips and tricks on things that I think were the most beneficial when I made the transition myself. So today I'm going to give you my top 5 items that I think are the most helpful. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is designate a space. So find a space where you can work in your home. Now, I understand this is going to look very different for everyone. If you've got roommates, that can present a challenge. If your place is a little on the smaller side, that can create some challenges as well. Just designate a space, whether it's a corner in your room, whether it's a whole entire room if you have that ability, whatever the case may be, but find a designated space that you can call your makeshift office. If this is a temporary situation, it can pretty much be anything. So the point of this is that it can be really distracting if you sit down to work and every 5 seconds you have to get up. Oh, I need a piece of paper. Oh, I need a pen. Oh, I need a stapler, whatever it is, right? So you can understand how that can be a little bit distracting. And it's also just helpful to have that set up so you can leave the setup there and, come and go as you please. So that would be my number one thing. My second thing that I would suggest is to take breaks. Now, I think that a lot of people have a tendency when you've never worked from home, never worked remotely before, you have a tendency to just get in the zone and just focus on what you're doing. And it can be really hard to intentionally make yourself take breaks. This isn't something you have to worry about commonly in the workplace, right? If you're going to an office every day, breaks happen naturally. People walk up, they start talking to you, there's somebody's phone rings. Things break that up on a regular basis. Well, when you're working from home or working remotely, you don't have that. So what you really need to do is make sure that you are finding these opportunities to take breaks. So, that can be, if you're not doing it, if you're not finding the opportunities just happening naturally, schedule those and set a reminder on your computer to make sure that you're doing it. Because what's going to happen is if you're not intentionally taking these breaks, if you're not stepping away for a few minutes every now and again, what's going to happen is that your productivity is actually going to decrease. Because the human mind is not capable of sitting there focusing on one thing and being productive for 8 hours, right? You've got to give yourself some breaks in there. So be intentional about making sure you're taking those breaks. Take a lunch break. It doesn't have to be the full hour. I'm not saying you need to go sit on the couch for an hour unless you want to. If you do, great. But for some people, that doesn't feel very natural. But make sure you are taking that lunch break and stepping away for a few minutes to give your brain that chance to decompress a little bit. The third thing I would suggest, which is kind of in line with the thing I just talked about taking breaks, is to get outside. Now, I know, again, not everybody has this luxury, but if you are in a position where you can get outside, even just for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, go walk around a little bit. For me, I find that it really kind of resets my brain, helps me get, thinking on a good path, kind of align where I am at this point, figure out what I'm going to do next, kind of just recharge and reset. And for some reason, getting outside makes all the difference. If you don't have that luxury, just get up and walk around, even in your apartment, in your house, whatever the situation is for you, and it'll still be helpful. I know there's a lot of people out there who track their steps. And if you are one of those people, when you've made this transition to working from home, you've probably realized it's a significant drop in the number of steps that you get. Your activity level is going to plummet. Even if you have a bigger house, your activity level is still going to plummet. So being intentional about going outside, taking these breaks, walking around a little bit, again, even if it's just 5 minutes, I think you'll notice a huge difference. This was probably the biggest impact that I've noticed as I've started working from home. The fourth thing I would suggest is to stick to your hours. It can be really easy to get sucked in and to, there's always work to be done. We live in a culture now where a lot of things can be done remotely, so there's always work to be done. Try your best to stick to your hours. Start at the same time, keep that routine going, end at the same time, disconnect as much as you can so that you can spend the time with your family that you normally would, if that's applicable for your situation. The next thing I would suggest is, so this is my fifth thing, is keep a list. If you're not normally a list person, this may feel a little clunky for you, and you may have to just kind of feel it out and see how it works for you. I find it to be very helpful, but I've always been a list person, so it may not resonate quite as well with you. But the second piece of this part that I would talk about is, if you are in a situation where you have kids at home that are not normally at home with you, in addition to working from home, starting a list for them can also be really helpful. Because if you're working from home and you're trying to keep your mind partially here on your work and partially on the kids and trying to figure out what they're doing, if they're old enough to follow a list, set out a list for them. Give them that structure. If you've got a kid at home who has been in school, maybe even in athletics, they have been living a very structured existence. So while this is a huge transition for you, guess what? This is also a huge transition for them. They're going from a completely structured existence, virtually almost every minute of the day structured, to no structure at all, right? So trying to help them put a little bit more of that structure that they're comfortable in place will really be helpful, both for them and also for you when it comes to your productivity for work. So again, those are my top 5 things that I would suggest. So just to recap, designate your workspace, take breaks, schedule them if you need to, if you're not naturally doing it, but give yourself that chance to take those breaks. Your productivity will improve because of it. I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but it will. Number 3, get outside if you have that option. Get some steps in, even if you can't get outside. Get up and get moving. Stick to your hours. And then last but not least, a list for you and a list for the little ones. So hopefully you found these tips helpful. If you need more help, look us up, proactivehappiness.com. We'd be happy to work with you to work through this challenge. So hope everybody's doing well out there. Take care of yourselves and your family.